God is horrible. It's an old idea about God. God is horrible. And God is horrible precisely because God is truly absolute goodness with a teleological dynamic. And once you recognize that this is actually the case, that this is what is going on, God's radical goodness is very personal to you because he is concerned about your soul, because he relates to souls as objects that he is kind of curating or helping sculpt into what he knows is an absolute bliss beyond your wildest imagination. And it's just at the moment when you see this that you begin to understand that God is horrible. You start to like the idea that God is horrible because it means that God is totally, totally good. And he wouldn't be totally, totally good if he didn't wear the mask of horribleness at times. Now, I use the word horrible in a traditional way. It's kind of synonymous here with awesomeness. An awesomeness that strikes you to your core and devastates your self-importance. The horribleness of God is his promise to you that he is going to transform you into love. Think about love. Think about the implications of turning into love. Actually transforming your will in that way forever. It's the total transformation of the self that he's looking for. Because that is what is beautiful. And so he's horrible. Love is horrible. That's why it's the only truth. You know, the truth goes to the bottom of what reality can be. And that's horrible because it's so, so good. Because you really wouldn't have it any other way. Not when you're talking about love. And he is going to transform you into love. The Logos takes souls and it moves them through time. And all they have to do is say yes, and it will do it. Ask God to do it, and the process begins. And whether you finish it in this life, or whether you finish it in purgatory, or whatever the case, how God organizes it, he is going to turn you into love. The awesomeness of God really outstrips you in a serious, serious way. Because the greatness of love has no bounds. And a baby is fully in it and gets it, and in a sense has a proper existential relationship to reality, but it hasn't developed the intellect to appreciate it. And what the glory of man is that he grows these complicated minds, often perhaps only through the process of a certain kind of fall into confusion and anxiety, so that he can grow these complicated minds then to once again find the truth of the release into love, but now it can appreciate it fully in understanding. And God is so amazing, he's going to do it to you. And if you just let him, he is going to transform you into love. And you know what that means, because you don't know what that means, except you know what that means. It's everything you could ever want, but that you don't even know you want now because you don't really know what you want. Except for the fact that you can have faith that God knows what you want, and what you want is love, and he's going to show you what that means. And the loop just goes on forever. That's what love is. That's why it's surrender to God. The awesomeness of God should be seen as a kind of archetypal awesomeness. We shouldn't lose that way of relating to God. There's something very powerful about it in human consciousness. As long as you are aware that that kind of relation to God is this archetypal, horrible judge or something, is just a particular kind of archetypal manifestation of love. And the only way you can understand that is to know that that image of God is part of the joy of the process as it pulls you towards the release out of fear into love. That the teleological direction of God gives him all this character, in a sense. Character that is ultimately lost when it's just revealed to be the sweetness of and totality of love and bliss. You know, the scary mask comes off and it's just the sweetness and the love. But the human joy, the human drama is going through the whole thing with God, you know, and transforming your will and becoming one with him in love. Because he who abides in love abides in God. The more you love, the more being wants to be with you. Think of it that way. Again, assuming that other people ultimately have access to your experiences in the sense of the Akashic records or the fact that you're sort of downloaded to the celestial YouTube as an experience, the more you're in love, the more that experience wants to be replayed existentially, because it's what reality feeds on. It's what feels good. It's what's glorious. And so the more you abide in love, the more you're sort of replayed in the YouTube of celestial playback and remixed, and you know, who knows how the data stream works at the higher levels. That's why life's eternal, because saying it's just immortal doesn't capture the weirdness of it. You know, you're already downloading the information to the data banks, and if you're miserable, it tends not to be watched a lot by reality in the higher levels, because it's painful. But God is always, Christ watches everything. God is always there with you to the end. But if you can abide in love, then you're just inviting being into you, because being wants to be in love. Being wants to be in love. And the horrible, horrible God is going to show you why. Because he's not horrible at all, because he's tremendous and loving and a giver of being through love. And you become so loving ultimately that the playback loop is just ultimate. It just keeps reflecting itself in playback, because it's so excited to be what it is. You know, you have to be excited to be what you are. That's what gratitude is for every moment. I'm so excited to be what I am right now. Consciousness at this state, understanding reality in this way. And then that's inviting being into you. That's inviting more consciousness, in a sense. And you're not always even aware of it, but your consciousness is larger when you're not depressed. Think about the world. You want to have saturation of colors, saturation of excitement and emotions and people around you. Whereas when you're depressed, you want things dark, you want the colors diluted, you want black and white, consciousness wants to desaturate. It wants to invite less being into it, not more, because being is too painful. But when you're in love, being is so utterly joyous that you can turn up the volume and you're getting more playback in being. And God is this mystical background force, reality, totality, archetypal figure who is pushing you to love. The ultimate superego who actually knows what's best for you and is real. And he'll do anything to prove it to you, including the cross, in which he reveals the depth of his love for you by dying for you in the most horrific and beautiful possible way. That's the horrible God of Christianity. The most glorious possible God conceivable by consciousness itself.